Alrighty. Alrighty. I have done it. A long and arduous journey. I'm really surprised that I didn't have to fight the boss. That, that's a nice little change of pace from other games that I have played, before. You know, where they give you a really super difficult final boss, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna be bashing my head against this for a good long while. But alright, Terracotta has been conquered. Oh, this one's been a tough one. Um, my overall thoughts. I had a really hard time with this game. And because of that hard time, I ended up not really enjoying this game all too much. Which I feel like was pretty evident. I feel like I was complaining a lot. Um, and not to say that I don't complain when I'm playing video games or whatever, but uh, I feel like this time the frustration was quite overwhelming, I guess, which I'll get to. But yeah, I think this game has a lot of really cool aspects to it. But there's also other implementations and design choices and various other elements that just don't really make it fun to interact with or to play around with. Um, and it just makes it an overall frustrating experience. For the story, was it satisfying? Truthfully, I kind of forgot the story. I know I've only been playing this for 5 days, but um, we got some story at the very beginning, and then we got the story at the very end. There was no story in between. So I'm going to leave this one with I don't know. Did it feel complete? I guess, it started and it ended. Uh, I will say that the ending, is kind of cool. I think the ending is kind of cool. Uh, you know, Dragon is terrorizing the energy of the world, and the protagonist is like, you don't need all these soldiers. I will will protect you, and that's a really nice take on things. You don't see that very often in today's games, so I thought that was very very cool. We're gonna skip all the way down to gameplay mechanics and design. What gameplay elements stand out? I really enjoy a lot of the puzzle elements associated with the game. Utilizing different elements and skills across several levels to solve and overcome various obstacles is cool. It keeps the gameplay very fresh. There were um, a lot of scenarios where I didn't exactly see how the puzzle was going to go. But there were various elements out there that allowed me to either take my own approach to it or find out what the intended solution was. And, judging by me having defeated the game, I actually managed to get there and solve 95% of the puzzles. There were some aspects of puzzles that I skipped because they weren't necessary to solve the puzzle. It was interesting, but also really cool. You don't have to. You can do other stuff to solve puzzles. In a lot of games, it's like sequenced, so you have to. If you don't interact with puzzle object 1, then puzzle object 2 is uninteractable. And, they tried to design the puzzles that way, but I just I just did not adhere to that logic. Some of those elements really surprised me, like charging the chi walls with electricity or shooting arrows through fire for fire arrows. I wasn't expecting this kind of stuff. I think the chi walls with electricity, that was when like the light bulb appeared in my head, and I was like, wow, they could really do some cool stuff with this. Um, you know, some walls are electrified, some are not. You're bouncing arrows back and forth to get to a specific spot or something like that. Like they're just the idea started flying for me of how they could take that, and I thought that was really cool. And then like the fire arrows and like the electricity arrows, that's just stuff that I wasn't even expecting. Um, I don't think they were utilized very often, especially the electricity arrows. The fire arrows, a little bit, or at least I only used it a little bit. But yeah, it's really cool. It's neat how useful the shield is when it comes to having the ability to shoot arrows. I like the implementation. Yeah, so the shield ability is pretty cool. I don't think I have this written down, but I don't like that it just blocks one arrow, and then like if there's arrows coming towards you afterwards, like those are just gonna hit you. But I like the aspect of using the shield to effectively turn the arrow into a coin, and then you can use that coin to then shoot your own arrow to solve like puzzles and things like that. And that was a very unique mechanic in my eyes that I used a lot, even going out of my way sometimes to use it. The clone ability is really cool, and I like how they leveraged it for several puzzles. I think I like looking back. I think maybe the clone was not even the the intended solution for some of the puzzles. I'm not 100% sure, but uh, the clone was was pretty neat for the puzzles that I used it on, and I think that's where they were intended on, but maybe they weren't. But it's really cool, especially that you can have it indefinitely if you fully upgrade it. You can do some interesting things. Maybe I should have been using the clone to explore. Never thought of that. There's some aspects that I didn't really enjoy all too much as well. The implementation of some of the skills can leave a lot to be desired, be it having cooldowns on skills like the shield, dash, and roll. It creates a very inconsistent experience for me. And this could be a me problem, but sometimes skills just wouldn't work when they should have or didn't function like intended. Many dashes I've made have gone haywire for unknown reasons. Um, so some of the I feel like some of the skills are a little redundant. Like you have the dash and then you have the roll, and like sure the roll uh makes you invulnerable, but you could just make the dash make you invulnerable. Um, I don't know if the roll like moves you onto another platform. I never tested that. But yeah, I guess I wish I wish they approached them in a different way to make them a little bit more unique and distinct from one another, and that would have allowed a little bit more justification on putting coins or points into different skills to do different things. I will also say the roll skill was like, I think it was used twice. I understand that, there's really not much need for, tons of obstacles or whatever you got to roll under, but I feel like if you're going to introduce a skill and you're going to allow the player to invest points into it to improve it and whatnot, I feel like it would be a good thing to make sure that it has its fair representation, I guess. Some skills don't seem to work as intended or just feel pointless. For example, the fully upgraded dodge still has a cooldown. Skills like taking over the enemies feel useful since it maxes out, or I guess feels useless is probably what I. Yeah, yeah. Skills like taking over the enemies feel useless since it maxes out at 5 seconds. What possible point could there be in taking control of units for 5 seconds? Um, this one, I probably just leave it the way it is. I tried to think of like previous puzzles where taking over enemies would be useful, but when it comes down to it, just like circling the enemies in some chi energy and calling it a day just feels like the only solution that's going to get you anywhere. And even that's very temporary. Um, Turning enemies into their terracotta form until I phase back into the yin dimension again is disappointing. I would have liked it to be permanent until the skill is used again on other enemies or cancelled. So I was very excited to get this skill because it allowed me to overcome one of my biggest challenges, which is all the enemies running around and attacking you and things like that. And this effectively gave me the opportunity to remove that element. But because it's basically very temporary, because you have to go between the yin and the yang dimensions constantly, basically. So in some regards, not all regards, but in some regards, it's like having a 5, 10, 15, 20 second duration, um, which doesn't make it as useful as it should be. It makes it uh, less useful than just surrounding them in chi energy. The perspective of environment pieces can really make it difficult to understand what's going on. There's been many times where something above me looks below me or to the side, or times when there's stairs or a ramp and it's just not clear. Yeah, so I mean, like in that final area where there was the lightning and I was, those rising and falling rocks and things like that, and I was trying to get onto that platform so I can activate the lightning. That was a perfect example. I couldn't tell if I had to take the rocks up to get onto it, and then from there I couldn't tell if it was uh, to the north or level with me or to the south. It was very, very difficult to figure out where that was in relation to my character. Um, and there's a lot of that in this game where it's tough. It's like, is like, can I not move forward right now because I just clipped on some geometry or something like that, or is there a wall here because I'm supposed to jump, or this is like a step or something like that. I will also add, it's to be expected that there's uh, going to be bugs and things like that, and I managed to overcome all of those bugs. But there's some really interesting ones in here that I came across, and they were interesting. Let's see. I wish it would autosave after each torch is lit, and if you died, you restarted with full HP at that last checkpoint, basically at the last torch. Um, or like, so what I'm saying here is if you lit two torches, okay, torch one and torch number two, and then you died, you would respawn at the tree checkpoint, but both of those torches would be lit because the autosave. There are a lot of demanding sequences in the game that could be alleviated with this. Uh, yeah, so I will also add to this that I feel like if you fall off the world, um, either respawning at the last spot that you fell off of, or respawning at the tree checkpoint spot is probably my preferred way to navigate that. I think at that final level there was a perfect example of me getting absolutely destroyed and getting knocked off the stage multiple times and effectively having to navigate the entirety of the stage all over again just to get back to where I was. And stuff like that is, not fun to do. Moving slow in the yin dimension is annoying and feels pointless. I get that there are no threats there, but exploration and analysis are needed for many puzzles, and this feels like an excessive punish to accomplish that. Uh, so this is in tune with something that I'll talk about in I guess a little bit, but um, I when I'm playing a puzzle game, I like to look at my surroundings and then figure out what I'm going to do. And I don't feel like I have I don't feel like I'm encouraged to do that, I guess. And if I moved at full speed in the yin dimension, that might be the some that might be encouragement to do so. Lightning hitting you when its indicator is beneath the ground. This was super annoying. There's uh, instances where the layering of stuff that's happening for the geometry doesn't quite align with how the lightning works. And so, like, if lightning is covering some stairs, or I guess the better way to put it is stairs are covering the lightning because you can't see the lightning indicator. So you could just get hit by lightning while you're, chilling on stairs. Um, that stuff drives me nuts. I will also add to this. I'm not a fan of moving up the slopes and stairs at a decreased or decelerated pace. Um, and on top of that, I don't like that certain ramps will slide you back down. Uh, this caused many a strife in my playthrough where like maybe I'm trying to move up to go to do something, but an enemy's chasing me, and they hit me. I slide back down, and then it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh well, I'm gonna get hit again because I'm moving slower now. Then there's the stuff I loathe with a burning passion. I struggled with this game, and it's because of the enemy system. What I find enjoyable about puzzle games are the elements of figuring out and then eventually solving the puzzle. However, the enemies make that process frustrating, tedious, and just ruin any and all good this game has to offer. So yeah, I mentioned that I like to kind of explore the puzzle and then figure out how to do it. But the problem that surfaced every single time is there were always, I would say 99.9% of the time, there was some type of enemy that would make it so that I couldn't just walk around and say like, okay, I need to do this. I got to then do this, and like just figure out what I need to do for the puzzle. So I would encounter the issue of I need to figure out how to get this enemy off my back to then figure out how I want to do the puzzle. Or in some instances, I'm running around in circles, paying attention to the enemy, and then looking for the solution to the puzzle or how the puzzle is supposed to interact with all the other elements. And sure, I can multitask like that. I managed to do it. But it doesn't make the the game fun for me. It it just makes it tedious because in some instances I'm running away from like five enemies, and I need my chi power to do other things. And then on top of that, sometimes your chi power is just not useful in navigating the enemies because they're shooting arrows at you, or they're shooting like flame arrows that leave patches of fire on the ground. It it's it's unbelievably frustrating, and it is the single biggest thing that uh, that made this game not fun. Uh, it's not that the game has enemies, but they are too plentiful and extremely disruptive. It takes everything away from the puzzles that are trying to be solved because so much effort and energy is being wasted on enemies following me around or raining arrows on me. So yeah, like there can be enemies in this game. I don't think I have this written down, so I'll just say it now. Um, there were many instances where I used enemies to solve puzzles. And that's great. If you're placing these enemies to do specific interactions with the puzzle so that it can be solved, I'm cool with that. The puzzle will be designed around that so that if I surround an enemy in chi to um, step on the platform, I'll have enough chi to finish the rest of the puzzle. But I really want to say most puzzles that have enemies don't interact that way at all. They're just there to be annoying. And they're always annoying. Uh the placement of the enemies feels so deliberate in their goal and function. In that their goal and function is just to provide for frustration. Um, there were some instances where, uh, like, I needed to step on like a little platform button thing for the power to fill up, and all on the flanks were just those shooting fire arrows with the fire patches on the ground at me, and it just it makes one wonder why. Like, why would you do this to me? It rough times. The bosses in the game also feel extremely out of place. Some arenas, like the lightning and the fire one, feel downright unfair, all while trying to solve a puzzle and a boss chasing you around wherever you go. On top of that, the bosses are very inconsistent with their attacks, often having lingering hitboxes that hit further than the range indicator, or speed themselves up so that they can hit you. Um, yeah, the first boss was freaking tough, man. I struggled so much with that boss. And then subsequent bosses after that, some of them were a little bit easier. Some of them were like amazingly more difficult. Um, and it's crazy too because the the bosses themselves are a very simple thing to do. The problem is the interaction with the arena coupled with a boss that's chasing you that can have inconsistent attacks associated with them. It's it makes it difficult to figure out like the proper way to approach a stage like that because you have a boss attacking you, you have a puzzle to solve, and you also have to navigate the stage itself. Like the fire one, there's fire all over the place, you know? And so there's only so much room for you to move around. And you have to like basically wait for the fire to go away to gain access to other portions of that particular arena. Um, which means you're blocked off from seeing either the results or trying to figure out how to do the next step in the puzzle. It just doesn't create a fun experience to combine all of those things. I don't think that the way this game approaches puzzles complements the way they want to have bosses uh, uh, like boss fights, I guess. I would much rather have the boss be a final test of all the tricks that were learned in the area, bouncing arrows, linking electrical walls, or something. You know, embracing the puzzle aspect essentially. Um, so, in the fire area, maybe I'm doing fire things. You know, I'm bouncing arrows through fires to blow up walls, and just like a high level execution or mastery of the systems that we have learned so that we could feel like yeah, this was the final fire level, it was great, and then you move on to the next stage. um and that's more or less where I'm at. I I don't think like the boss fight aspect just fits. There's no combat, so nothing there for dungeons. Uh, I think I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I really liked the first level. The first level I felt was very chill and um, very deliberate with like the enemies and how the puzzles are being approached and whatnot. Um, it's what effectively just drew me into the game with the demo. But none of the other stages really approached it in that same way. There was also that bird sequence where we like made the sounds and got like the text on the sides and stuff like that. Like that was a really nice stage, but we never got anything else like that. No cardinal sins. For miscellaneous sound and music, I like the music. Music is really nice. For voice acting, there wasn't very much voice acting in the game, but I did like it. I do enjoy what I would assume to be the Mandarin language. And if it's not the Mandarin language, well, I like the language that was spoken. It's nice to hear. For the graphics, I like the visual style of the game. I do feel that there are. I mentioned earlier that it's like very difficult to see the perspective of things. I think there is uh, an inconsistency, or maybe just a like there needs to be a different approach when it comes to shadows and how elevation is being presented to the player, because stuff like that really muddies the waters a little bit. Um, there's, yeah, I guess I'll just leave it like that. Replay value. Does the game offer additional story content on a second playthrough to warrant playing the game again? Uh, like, uh, no, I don't see anything like that. Is the game worth recommending? Sadly, I, I personally would not recommend this game to anybody. Um, it's it has cool elements in it, and uh, the game itself could be fun to do, but as of how I experienced it, I really don't see I don't see anybody. It's the best way to put this. Like, I don't see how I could describe this game to somebody and then that person would be like, "Yeah, I want to play that. That sounds great." Um, I wouldn't do if there was justice to be had from this game. I don't think I would do it justice in presenting in like an unbiased opinion to that person, because I'm so biased towards the enemies ruining my experience that would be the biggest thing for me to try to convey, is that like you're going to be playing a puzzle game, but you also have unkillable enemies that are following you around everywhere you go, and you know, you have to solve puzzles and do navigation and you know, all these factors that just make the I want to play a puzzle game, you know, fall so far down the list. So sadly I would not recommend this game at this current time. If the developer is watching, I'm gonna keep it 100 here. I found myself not having fun with this game and ultimately not liking it in the slightest. I think it started off so interesting with its first level, and the bird sequence was really nice, but all of that was lost on me very quickly. If I was given the ability to change one thing in the game, it would be the enemies. Their placement, their quantities, and their purpose would be completely overhauled. Enemies would work in service of the puzzles instead of hindering my ability to complete them. I also went back to watch my thoughts of the demo from 2021, I think. I don't remember. And I found myself enjoying the game back then. It definitely makes me sad because I feel like this game is very unique, but some of the things implemented in it just don't work for me. And that's more or less all that I got to say about it. Uh, it's it's a neat concept, and I like a lot of the ideas that went into this. But uh, if it's trying to be a puzzle game, it's just not my kind of puzzle game. Um, you know, I want to step into a puzzle arena and be like, all right, let's figure this out. And like the puzzle is my one and only concern. You know, there can be secrets on other stuff. That's all fine, but I don't want to have to navigate an enemy element. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for me for today. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. I'll be back Monday. Yep, Monday. Today's Friday. Monday, 7 a.m. Pacific. And I'll play something else. See ya the next time I see ya. Peace.